The Goat House is back, breaking down the very best NFL head coaching candidates, their best fit, and potential landing spots when it's all said and done. There's a brand new job opening the Dallas Cowboys and a brand new head coaching candidate, Mike McCarthy. Let's see where he winds up in this video. Let's start with Ben Johnson, the Lions offense coordinator. Most people, most teams, number one candidate on their wish list. It might not be all teams. There actually could be some teams that prefer someone else as a fit, even a similar style coach. We'll talk about that as the video goes on, but mostly everyone's number one here. The big question is where he will land. In terms of fit, not necessarily my prediction, just in my opinion, where should Ben Johnson prefer? I like the Jacksonville Jaguars, and I do think it's a legit landing spot. We'll talk about those landing spots in a second. We've already kind of discussed those. We had a recent video breaking down a lot of good information about the openings and the potential candidates, so you could check that out. But the Jags, I mean, they have the quarterback. Trevor Lawrence has been underwhelming, but the potential is there. The talent is definitely there. Ben Johnson, what he did with Jared Goff, it reminds me of a very similar situation there. I think it's just such a perfect coach-quarterback fit. But there are more. That alone gets me, but there are more factors. The Jags have players in place. They need some help on the offensive line, but they have young, good, solid players on the offensive line. They have weapons. They have that running back duo that Ben Johnson really likes. Obviously, they have, Brian Thomas Jr. looks like a stud. They have other weapons. Defensively, they have some weapons there. They have loads of draft picks. And I think what's overblown is the GM situation. There's been some rumors that Ben Johnson wants to pick his GM, and I don't really view that as fit. We're talking fit here, but I think it's also overblown. I don't. People act like the Jags are going to hire a guy and they're not going to let him make any decisions. Only Balky's making the decisions. If they hire anybody, but especially a guy like Ben Johnson, he's going to be able to say, all right, I like this guy in the draft, this guy, I like this guy in free agency. I need him on my team. We're going to go get him. They're going to agree. As long as it works out financially, they're not going to go, nope, I'm in charge here. You're not doing it. It's not, people are talking like that. That's not really the case there. But there is a scenario where maybe he just prefers to be running the show a little bit more, or he could pick his GM. So maybe that's a reason, or for financially, somebody pays him more. Maybe those are the reasons he doesn't choose the Jags. So not necessarily my prediction, but to me, the best fit for one of the best candidates. But landing spots, the Raiders. I talked about Ben Johnson with the Raiders in the most recent coach video. You could get a lot of information on that one. Check it out. But that makes a lot of sense. They could pay up. They're also looking at Pete Carroll, of course, but Cowboys, brand new job opening. It's a little bit up in the air on who their top candidates will be, but a pretty good situation. They have pieces on the offensive line. They have Dak Prescott. Gets ripped a lot, but it's a pretty good quarterback. They have CeeDee Lamb. They have ball players on defense. So I think that's a pretty appealing spot. We talked about the Jags as well. There hasn't been a lot of steam, if you will, on that right now, but I think it makes sense. And the Bears have been, there's more talk about like the Bears and the Raiders and the Jags, and we're kind of waiting on the Cowboys. But the Bears having that young Caleb Williams and a lot of upside there. He'll be interesting because he's staying in the same division, that tough division, have to play the Lions twice a year. So that would be damn entertaining, let me tell you. But yeah, that's kind of the thing. We'll talk more about the Bears actually on Ben Johnson. There's some arguments where yes, it's exactly what they need, and there's some arguments where actually there might be a better fit out there. But these are my thoughts on Ben Johnson. Let's talk about the Vikings defensive coordinator, Brian Flores, known as one of the better defensive minds in football. Has done a really good job with the Vikings, but did a really good job, I thought, actually, as a head coach of the Miami Dolphins. So he has that experience. He has experience with other good defenses on staff as well. The only flaw is does it come with a little bit of a distraction, Brian Flores, because how the head coaching job went with the Dolphins, he was a little too hard on the players. And then when he was trying to get a head coaching gig, that situation, does he come with a little bit of baggage or distraction? That's really the only knock on Brian Flores. I'm going to be a little bold here, a little creative, I guess, with the landing spots, because I could sit here and list the teams that he interviewed with or teams that could be interested. I know he interviewed with the Bears, a couple other teams, the Raiders maybe could be interested. But I'm just going to say I think it's the New York Jets or bust, which means back to the Vikings. And of course, there is some sort of percentage chance he ends up the head coach of one of those other teams. I just don't want, for some of these guys that I have kind of firm thoughts on, I don't want to sit here and just list all the landing spots, like kind of boring, right? So for Flores, right now, my feeling with the landing spots is Jets or back to the Vikings. And I do think the best fit, if he's going to be a head coach, I mean, it's a great fit, the New York Jets, for several reasons. That defense is already built. That defense has some talent on it, and I feel like these are really solid players that can fit Flores' scheme. I mean, he's pretty open to about anything. You know, he's going to blitz a bit, but you're going to see zone, you're going to see man, you're going to see a mixture of things, and he has the players to do that. Much better corners than what he had in Minnesota, what he has right now in Minnesota, even though he has that defense ball and there is talent on it. But so that fit makes a lot of sense for that reason. But going against the Dolphins twice a year, the Patriots twice a year, being that tough leader that the Jets are looking for more of a proven guy that can be a leader of men. It just makes a lot of sense for several reasons. I think he's a legit candidate for the Jets job. So not just a fit. He also is a legit candidate, even more so than we just talked, a couple days ago on who the Jets can get. I'm still leaning Aaron Glenn in terms of prediction, but Aaron Glenn, Brian Flores, Matt Nagy could be a sneaky one there, but these are the types of guys that the Jets are looking for, so that's a great fit. Of course, again, he interviewed with a couple other teams. Wouldn't be surprised the Raiders popped up, but my gut right now is telling me it's Jets or bust for Brian Flores. Some teams might be a little turned off, again, because of the off-the-field stuff, if you will, the distractions. Is it a big thing for all these teams? We'll see, but in my opinion, the main point of this video, first, let's highlight the very best candidates, in my opinion. I think Flores is up there. He's a really good leader. He did a pretty solid job as a head coach, I thought, at least. He looked like he could have been going somewhere. Very good leader, very good defensive coach. Another top candidate that probably isn't being talked about enough is Ravens offense coordinator Todd Monken. Had experience with the Buccaneers when their offense was very explosive, and was with the Georgia Bulldogs when the Georgia Bulldogs were very, very elite. Now they're taking some steps down a little bit, but he's got a really good resume. He's done a really good job. He's done a very good job with the Ravens. It feels like they're a step up compared to when they had Greg Roman. It feels like Lamar Jackson's always been great, but a step up, actually, especially in the passing game. Look what he's done. Even another year, Lamar elevating that passing game, that offense. I mean, the play designs are what the biggest difference is from Greg Roman era to Monken era. And who's that fall on? Absolutely on the offense coordinator. Really no one else. It's just the offensive coordinator. So that's huge. That's huge. I guess the only knock, like, will he be as a leader? He's a little on the older side. The younger guys are kind of taking over lately for the most part. Everyone's kind of looking for that next young, Kevin O'Connell, maybe Dave Canales, guys like that, and there's other ones out there. McVay was the original, obviously Shanahan, but just lately everyone's loving Kevin O'Connell. There's rumors the teams want to trade for him. They like him that much, so maybe that's the knock on Monken and maybe why he's not getting a ton of hype. I absolutely love the fit with the Chicago Bears, and they had an interview with him, so that's fantastic. So that means the fit could make some sense here, but very interesting landing spot, the Chicago Bears. All the talk is Ben Johnson, and Ben Johnson, the argument for Ben Johnson is, well, number one, Caleb Williams has to work out. They got to get him going. That's their prized possession. They finally got to get a quarterback going, and he was disappointing this year. So Ben Johnson could help that. He also can help build an offensive line. And Ben Johnson's offense, they run the ball, they get the ball out quickly in the passing game. That's exactly what Caleb Williams really needs help with. So that would be the argument for Ben Johnson. But at the same time, Ben Johnson's coming from an elite offensive line and a quarterback that should naturally just can get the ball out quick, elite running backs there. So the Bears going, this guy might have, it might be a bit until we have that ready for him, where a guy like Todd Monken, what he did with a quarterback, Lamar Jackson, a quarterback that has some legs, and how he elevated his passing, how he created better play designs, especially in the passing. That was a big problem for the Bears. I mean, if you watch where these guys are running the routes and how they're running the routes, it just was not great, right? And that created guys really not getting open, which was part of the problem. There's a mixture of problems there. So to me, and they can get the most out of Caleb Williams. And even Lamar, sometimes he'll hold the ball. He'll hold the ball when it's right, and he'll make plays outside the pocket. Get Caleb doing more of that. If he's going to hold on to the ball, get him doing more of that. Get him outside the pocket, have better play designs. They have better receivers overall or they should at least. I know Zay Flowers is really good, and they have some really good tight ends there. But I don't know. To me, that makes a lot of sense. A really good fit. I like how he has the college background, because Caleb Williams still kind of gives you those high-end college-style quarterback vibes. So I love the experience. So I could actually argue that Todd Monken maybe makes a little more sense than Ben Johnson. The flaw is, older coach. Is he going to be that leader of a guy? Definitely could be. Landing spots, I like the Bears. If it happens, I think there's a decent shot he goes back to the Ravens, doesn't get a head coaching job. There's a decent shot at that. In my latest predictions, I didn't have him going anywhere, but I do think the Bears are a legit spot. I think the Raiders are a wild card team. The Jags are a wild card team. Definitely could see it. Maybe the Jags getting a guy for Trevor Lawrence here and Todd Monken. And the Cowboys. Cowboys throw in there just because they're still a little bit of a mystery. They just moved on from Mike McCarthy today. But to me, I definitely think he can end up on the Raiders or Jags. But to me, maybe it's Bears or bust. Could end up going back. I think he should get a little bit more. Todd Monken, that is, should get a little bit more love when it comes to the coaching candidates. He's one of my top guys right now, I guess, depending on the landing spot. Talk about another solid offensive mind here, a bit younger compared to Todd Monken, and Liam Coen done a really good job at the Buccaneers offense, keeping Baker playing very, very well. Explosive offense there. Has the background in college with Kentucky and then with the Rams as well. Played the quarterback position, so really good background there. And it's kind of looking like, could he be another one of those young offensive minds that could be a good head coach? Again, a lot of teams looking for a Kevin O'Connell. Could he be a QB whisperer? Another one of those types of guys. So that's why he's a little appealing. I kind of cheated here. Went with two best fits because now that the Cowboys job is opening, I haven't heard anything about the Liam Coen going there, but I really like the fit. Jags a little more likely. I actually predicted them to get him. There's a couple options for them, but Jags and Cowboys, really like that Jags fit. But since we already had a Jags one, because I really like the Cowboys, throw that in there as well. But yeah, both those teams got a good quarterback. You can get more out of them. Bringing in a guy like this would help you, and it help the offense in general. I could just see them with both those offenses working with those quarterbacks, those receivers, guys that are possibly looking for a young offensive-minded coach to kind of just stick it out. Like, no worrying about long-term. Just stick it out with their star quarterbacks long-term, and hopefully it works out. Landing spots, I really like the Jags. The Cowboys makes a lot of sense. We haven't heard on anything on that yet. Haven't heard a ton about him with the Bears, but again, it makes sense for the same reasons I talked about Monken for the Bears. Like, they need someone to help Caleb Williams, work out. A guy that's, knows the position, played it, worked as a quarterback coach, offense coordinator. He's worked well with other quarterbacks, so it could make sense for the Bears. And right when the Raiders job opened, that is actually the first name that I heard to watch for. It was kind of in the sense of being more of a wild card, but really watch for him. And that's kind of died off, but we put the Raiders up there as well for those reasons. I really like the Jags, but Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, they don't want to overvalue running back anymore, and Cohen's offense is mainly going to be pass. But even the Bucs running game was really good, but you could see he didn't really want to do it. Again, it reminds me of like another Kevin O'Connell. It's hard to say he'll be as good as Kevin O'Connell, but that's why it's pretty appealing. And we talked about, I love the fit of Ben Johnson for the Jags. In my opinion, I think the Jags job is really appealing. No one's really talking about that as much as me, though. So maybe it's just personal flavor, personal opinion. But I will say, I could actually see the Jags, I could see it. I'm not necessarily saying it's the case. The Jags having Coen, Ben Johnson, 1 and 2, Coen at the top, just because specifically the quarterback position, how he has the background, again, playing it, coaching it, being an offense coordinator, being with good quarterbacks, elevating offenses, being with Trevor Lawrence. They might see that fit. Coen, Trevor Lawrence, and Brian Thomas Jr. being like a Mike Evans type. The more I'm talking about, the more I love it. But I like it with Dak and CeeDee Lamb as well. But that was my prediction. Again, recent video breaking down a lot of stuff. I had Coen with the Jags, but I do like Ben Johnson. There could be other options as well. But these, again, point of the video, talking about the very top guys in my opinion, and we're going to cover the other guys as well. Coen is up there for me. We talked about the Lions OC. Let's talk about their DC, Aaron Glenn, who is quite obviously one of the top candidates. Everyone loves him. I think, I'm maybe not quite as high on him as it seems some of these teams are, but I understand why they are. Like, doing such a good job, good culture with the Lions. He is part of that. I agree. He seems like a very strong leader. He has good experience with good teams, good backgrounds. A guy, likable guy that you would definitely like to play from. Another Brian Flores type guy. Compared to Brian Flores, I think Brian Flores is a better defensive coach. My issue with Glenn, good defensive coach, good background. Sometimes he drives me nuts with how much man coverage he runs. Sometimes it's because they feel like they have to. They don't have the players to run more zone. They are beat up on Detroit, but it's kind of been a thing going back to, even the Saints, when he was with the Saints. I know it wasn't really him pulling the strings there, but just all-man coverage defense. So more and more zone these days is winning big-time football games. So that's really my only knock, and why Maybe I say as a defensive coach, if he's calling the defense, maybe a little overrated. Overrated is a little tough because I do like him a lot and I understand why he's a top candidate, and I put him in the top candidates video, part of the video here. Best fit, same thing with Brian Flores. They're very similar. They're great defensive minds, known as great defensive minds. They're great, strong leaders, guys you want to go to work for. You take a look at these guys and they kind of get you jacked up about playing football, and then you hear them talking and you want to run through a brick wall, right? So some teams are looking for these guys. It's very, very understandable. The Jets already have that defense. It just makes sense for the same reasons as Brian Flores. And again, my prediction in that most recent coach video was Aaron Glenn, and I'm feeling it's Glenn, Flores, maybe sneaking Matt Nagy for the Jets, but I really think Glenn or Flores right now, one of those two, for the Jets, and it makes sense as the fit for the reasons I explained. He was drafted by the Jets. He coached with the Saints. I think he was on the Saints as a player, actually, very briefly at the end of his career as well. The Saints definitely, I think he's number one on the Saints board. They would definitely like him. Jets make a little bit more sense for him to come in and perform, the team to perform right away. So the Jets get the best fit over the Saints, but I do like the Saints a lot as well. And the Cowboys, Jerry Jones, definitely, I think what's appealing to him is strong, proven leaders. So I think he would be, considered, I suppose, for that Cowboys job. But it's still a little bit up in the air for the Cowboys. I'm mainly looking at Jets, Saints. If he doesn't get either of those, back to the Lions, it's just hard to see him. Ben Johnson's possible too. We didn't talk about that. He could once again go back. We keep thinking he's going to take a job. Could go back, but hard to see both those guys going back. But that would be a major win for the Lions. I think a lot of the talk, even during the season, people hinting at, the Lions got to win this year because they could lose both their coordinators. But there's a scenario where both maybe come back or one come back, and you look at their rival, who the Lions actually outplayed this year, the Vikings. And the Vikings, maybe, what if, the Lions keep their guys, the Vikings end up losing Flores, he takes Josh McCown with them. Be pretty interesting if it end up going that way, a little unexpected and a kind of a twist there, but I actually think that's a little possible. But Glenn, big time candidate to watch out for the Jets, mainly Jets, the Saints job as well. I think he ends up on one of those teams if he wants the head coaching job. Let's talk about the big guy, Mike McCarthy, who is now a head coaching candidate because him and the Cowboys could not reach an agreement on a long-term deal. We already know there is known interest from the Chicago Bears and New Orleans Saints. It is early. He's a new candidate, so other teams could pop up. We'll talk about that a little bit more in a little bit here. But, yeah, Mike McCarthy, I think people watching, a lot of people out there probably go, he's not the most appealing candidate or hire for my team, for our team. And the other guys I talked about in this video, maybe you view as much better candidates. Understandable. But I think McCarthy, at some point, maybe went from overrated a little bit, even though he was good, to maybe a little underrated now. I don't know. Gets ripped a lot. Cowboys get ripped a lot lately. And they deserve it sometimes, right? They've been underwhelming. The Cowboys have been underwhelming. Maybe it's a Cowboys thing. But where I think McCarthy kind of growing on me a little bit, where I think he could be a couple reasons actually why he could be a pretty decent hire, actually, maybe better than you think. Not that it's going to be the most appealing or the greatest. Well, one, the obvious, he knows ball, he knows football, he's been around good teams, he's coached good teams, he's worked well with quarterbacks, possibly knows how to develop them, has good offenses, he's won a Super Bowl, did well, with Aaron Rodgers. I know anyone maybe could have done well with him because he was a very good quarterback, but maybe not everyone gets along with them. Maybe he's a little head case sometimes. So that worked out. He just knows what good football teams are, what they look like. So that's the obvious. But something that people don't really talk about, in specifically why he could be a good option for the Bears or the Saints, is because he can steer an organization in the right direction. He's going to come in, and maybe, for the Bears, an example, is he going to make Caleb Williams a lead? Is he going to make them win a Super Bowl? Maybe not. Maybe most likely not. But I think he can get a team like that or other teams back on track. He's not going to come in. It's not going to be dysfunctional. He's going to be a safer hire that, again, he can work well, again, with the Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams still kind of feels like a prospect, raw in a way, looking at his play this year. Kind of has the college tendencies. Maybe he fits more of a college system a little bit more. McCarthy can coach him up, get him right on track, being an NFL quarterback. But just look at the team in general. They've hired some coaches that, they just have not been good leaders, good head coaches, and they've been dysfunctional, right? And there's been disasters within games or even outside of games. You're not going to get that McCarthy. And the Bears are kind of heading in the wrong direction because of what's been going on there. McCarthy's going to steer them right, I would think. You would think. Again, not the most appealing hire. Saints, similar situation. I think it's going to be a safer hire. It could be a bridge coach, not like 1 or 2 years, but kind of steer them in the right direction, help develop, help build, get some more talent in there, and steer them in the right direction. That is what I think of when I think of Mike McCarthy and why it could help an organization like that. Also, yeah, right now there's too many voices for the Bears that people complain about the ownership. And these are reasons I have them as the best fit, and it's also a possible landing spot as well. But people question the ownership. You got Kevin Warren trying to take control. As the GM, Pole's done a great job. I think if you get McCarthy in there, I think these people will listen to McCarthy. I think he's smarter than these people. I think, again, for several reasons, he is a guy that can show them the direction to kind of and steer them right into that right direction. That's my opinion there. Would it 100% work out? Would he 100%, like I'm saying, steer them in the right direction? Maybe not. I think it just makes more sense than a kind of a shot in the dark hire. And maybe Mike McCarthy, like I said, isn't long-term. It just helps get them going the right way. But it makes sense as a fit. Specifically, he's worked well at quarterbacks, could work with Caleb Williams, could kind of get him on track to what he's supposed to be doing, what it's supposed to look like. Again, what an organization is supposed to look like. So I think it makes a lot of sense. We know the Bears and the Saints are options. But again, it's early. He just became a candidate. Jags, Trevor Lawrence there, I think it could be really appealing for Mike McCarthy. I think it could be appealing for them. Maybe it's similar to Doug Peterson, hire a veteran guy that's won before, but I think he would be okay with working with Trent Baalke as well. And then for the Raiders, they like Pete Carroll a lot. Probably between Ben Johnson and Pete Carroll right now, but they like Pete Carroll a lot. That tells me they would probably like Mike McCarthy, that veteran guy that's proven a little bit, could help pick that next quarterback. I think that's what why the Saints really, really like him. So chances are he ends up with the Bears. The Saints could end up being at home this year. But I still think the Bears number one on their wish list is Ben Johnson, but I do think they really like Mike McCarthy, and he could be a little better of a hire. I know it's not the most appealing thing in the world. It's nothing to get super jacked up about, but it's a little bit better, maybe than what people are talking right now. We'll see. I know just based on the comments, Bears fan base, like do or die with Ben Johnson. Like it's that or nothing else. I think they would really hate this hire, but it could make a little sense, a little bit of sense because of the reasons I explained. So those were the top tier candidates, in my opinion. Here are more that are solid. They're decent. There's a couple on here that I really like, and there's a couple questionable ones maybe. If I did not talk about a candidate, if you're looking for a specific candidate, I didn't talk about him in this video, it's one of two things. I either think they're not that realistic of a candidate, or I just don't think a team should hire them. I don't think they're a good candidate. So the main purpose of the video was the top candidates, in my opinion, plus best fits and landing spots. But some good ones that could be talked about with the other ones that we just talked about, and they're categorized as the veteran winners. They know what a winning culture looks like. They've won where they've been. They're old timers a little bit. Pete Carroll and Steve Spagnuolo, and those are the logos next to these guys are not where they're coming from. Obviously, they're their best fits, in my opinion, where they could end up if hired. But Pete Carroll, the only knock on him is, he declined a little bit then. Is he declining? Is he too old? Hate to say things like that, but it's a legitimate question. But I think it would fit with the Raiders. Like, they have a pretty decent roster. They need to find a quarterback. Pete Carroll knows what that looks like. He knows how to kind of get a team that feels like they should be winning or rolling, right? And it just feels like a really solid fit, and it's very realistic for Pete Carroll to end up with the Raiders. And Steve Spagnuolo has done a phenomenal job with the Chiefs as defense coordinator, great game planner. He's got really good talent on the other side of the ball, obviously, so that's helped out. I know he's a defensive guy, but that's kind of helped him look like a winner, even though he's not the head coach. But at the same time, the defense has played a big part. He's taken some later round picks, mid-round picks, made them look ridiculous. Really good game planner. So he's an interesting one as well. It feels like the Jags would be most interested if they were to hire him. I think would fit a lot of players they already have on that roster. Down to young offensive options. It was a coincidence that we actually had two guys in each of these categories for the rest of this video. But Joe Brady getting some looks. Obviously was with the Saints in the past. A guy that you bring into two things. Guy that you bring in to kind of get a quarterback going. He's a really good, it feels like, quarterback coach, if you will, offensive game planner. He's kind of revived the run game for the Buffalo Bills as well. And the Saints, I think, need to be in some sort of rebuild because not so great financially. It's going to be tough to just try to force them into a win-now team. And Joe Brady's a guy that could be around for the long haul. Young coach. You get him to grow together. You're growing together with him, so it makes some sense. And Kellen Moore obviously would fit with the Cowboys. Some other teams like the Saints could be interested, but Kellen Moore, we know he fits with the Cowboys. We know that can work, can kind of get the offense back on track. You know what a good team, what a good Cowboys team looks like there. So I would watch out for that one. That one can make sense as well, but a good young offensive coach. And then a couple guys that are leaders plus their defensive coaches, but feel like strong leaders to me. Anthony Weaver, who's currently the Dolphins defensive coordinator, I thought he did a good job as the year went on. But he's a guy that you kind of want to play for. You know, he had the background with the Ravens. He just seems like a tough, leader type guy. Patrick Graham's the same thing. He's been very underrated. I like Patrick Graham a lot. I've liked him for a long time. Really good defensive coach, really strong leader. Just work ethic kind of has stood out. Heard good things about that when it comes to him in the past. Always elevates defenses. The Jags are the only known team that were interested in him, so I put them as the fit. And then some of the guys that I almost didn't put on this video because, this video was mainly about my favorite candidates, the top candidates that I feel pretty damn good about. Some of them maybe not super jacked about, but you get the point. But so these guys kind of fall in that category where they're risky, they're offensive guys, they've had chances as a head coach, and they failed, so it's a little scary. But Matt Nagy, I actually like Nagy a little bit better than Kingsbury, believe it or not, even though Kingsbury has a good, really good showing still, this year. But Matt Nagy, yeah, it's risky. He's got it made with the Chiefs. It's mainly Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid. The defense is good. They have playmakers, and he failed as a head coach. But the Bears, everybody fails with the Bears right now, it feels like. And he had Trubisky as his quarterback, right? And he knows what good football looks like. He's learned a lot from the Chiefs, from Patrick Mahomes. They learned some things from him, obviously, but he knows it's got to be contagious at some point, right? The Chiefs know how to adjust to what's working, what's not working, what works against opponents, and how just the best way to find victory. And I like the Jets as a landing spot because they're the only team that seems to be interested, but pretty good roster, pretty good defense. He's come in there, and I would like for him to pick his quarterback. He knows what that looks like. Kind of got stuck with Trubisky before, so that wouldn't be terrible. I wouldn't be in love with it. I would not hate it at all. Cliff Kingsbury, I'd probably pass on. I want to see more, even though he's done a phenomenal job this year, but he's got a unique offense. It's almost a little college-like. It's tough to game plan for, but eventually a game plan comes out for it, and then it looks tough. We saw it with the Cardinals. It looked lights out right away. Kyler Murray looked like an MVP candidate, and then it just step by step went down, and he just didn't really seem like, in general, besides that point, didn't seem like the greatest. Not that he was a bad leader, but it just didn't really seem like the greatest, just strongest leader as a head coach. So, and he's done a phenomenal job with it. It exceeded expectations with the Commanders this year. So he's deserving of some looks because of that alone. For me, if I'm hiring a coach, I want to see a lot more. I don't want that same thing to happen with the Cardinals. I don't want to bring him in and, so I definitely would pump the brakes on that right now. But I could totally see the Chicago Bears. I can see a lot of guys at the Chicago Bears right now. But just because his system kind of fits a Caleb Williams system type offense, and they've actually worked together. That was actually last year. Bears are looking to their number one goal is they want to turn the thing around in general, but Caleb Williams, the prize position, they want to get him going. So I could see that. Probably my least favorite, definitely my least favorite candidate on this list, but there's some guys, Joe Brady, Kellen Moore, are they ready? Mainly Joe Brady, are they ready to be that guy? Nagy, is he going to fail again like last time? Weaver, is he ready? Do we know enough about him to get going? Graham, teams just kind of pass on him. I like him. The Vikings actually were really close to hiring him when they hired Kevin O'Connell. I think that says something. Carroll and Spagnuolo are more of the top tier guys on this list right here. But the top tier guys, and we had to throw Mike McCarthy in there, we wanted to mainly focus on in this video here. But any candidate I didn't talk about, I either think they're not realistic for a job, or maybe there's a surprise guy I don't know about, or I just don't think they're worthy of a job, and I didn't talk about him in this video. We have a recent video that is still pretty informative where it's talking about the openings and who they possibly could hire. You can check that out. We have a recent mock draft. We have a recent free agency video. We have a lot of playoff content, more playoff and offseason content going to roll out. So subscribe, turn notifications on to be much, much appreciated. But that's going to do it for this one. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.